Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the people streaming the event. And yeah, like I said, like they said before, basically I work for HelloFresh. I lead the tracking team, the tracking people or the measurement people. We don't want to call ourselves trackers because it has bad connotations sometimes. But yeah, pretty much we are going to talk about the implementation of GTM server-side tagging, and how it helps us scale things and have more control over the data collection, basically. So if you don't know HelloFresh, basically we are a meal kit company. We also have different brands for ready-to-eat meals, and also for you to prepare them. You select your recipes every week. We send boxes to you with all those ingredients or the ready-to-eat food, and then we are working in 17 countries, actually. So you can imagine the scale of this operation, not just supply chain management, but also tracking-wise and data-wise. So this is average-looking person in there. It's me. Basically, yeah, I work at HelloFresh. I ensure that we collect data in a good way, in a legal way, and that it's available for our analysts to not get angry at us or do stuff with the equipment in the office at some point. But yeah, pretty much we take care of doing things the right way. And let's start with server-side tagging. Why should we consider having server-side tagging? And I call this the elevator pitch. It's a bit long. That's why it's the Burj Khalifa edition. But pretty much it's many reasons. The first one is an environment that you own and control. You actually can do whatever you want. You own the tags. You own the code that runs on that server implementation, and you are responsible for what happens with that data. Improvements on the client and browser performance. You're not loading tags, you're not loading scripts anymore on the browser, or much less than before. So you're offloading everything to the server. So it's an improvement for the user experience in that sense, and for whatever metrics you have on page loading performance. Then potential improvements on user privacy. Of course, this depends on how you treat the data, but you can redact data before sending it to different vendors or different data platforms that you use. And then, of course, data enrichment. You can enrich things on the fly before sending it to different, again, vendors or platforms. In our case, for example, we use a lot of voucher codes. Basically, we have the ID of the voucher code, and then we enrich that with what channel that voucher belongs to, or what affiliate channel actually that belongs to. So we enrich that before sending data instead of getting that from the front end. And then the data is collected on a first-party basis. It allows you to set first-party cookies. Probably with the latest update on ITP, in Safari browsers, this is not so much anymore because you are required to have a similar IP address in that sense, but at least data is collected in a first-party basis. It's you that set up that. But yeah, pretty much these are the main reasons why this is important. So for people or folks that don't know how all these two technologies work, client-side and server-side, so let's do a recap on how it works. So you have a web server, basically, or you have your server with your content. The user visits your site and then pretty much gets some content in there. And whenever they click on something, a data layer push, a CSS selector or something happens, pretty much what happens is GTM will read that action, and it will send back to the browser tags that needs to be executed, pieces of code in this case. So it will do that, and then pretty much send back to different vendors the data that you need. This is the typical stuff. You know this stuff already. So what's new with server-side tagging? So pretty much what happens is you have the web server now, again. You have, again, your browser serving some content. But what happens now is that instead of sending those events to GTM to get something back, what happens is you do an HTTP request to a server with whatever data you need to record about that action from the user or that event from the user. Then that server is actually the one that is taking care of offloading that data to whatever vendors you have, Google Analytics, Facebook, Instagram ads, or whatever platform that you use to to record this. So a lot of advantages are there, but pretty much what was our purpose of integrating all of this stuff, so as the data collection people? We live by this code that I'm going to show you. So basically, what we want to do with our events and with our all implementation is something called one container to rule them all, one data layer push to find them, one tag to bring them all, and in the Google Cloud bind them. So it's actually our philosophy on how we work with all our tagging. Actually, we mentioned this to a colleague of ours and pursuing a nice career in writing short stories. So actually, what we do is we try to standardize and simplify everything. And GTM server-side or server-side tagging overall was the perfect opportunity to actually achieve this. So what did we need to achieve all of this stuff that we wanted? So first, a cloud infrastructure that was capable of handling peaks of 1,000 hits per second. We record about 3 billion events per month globally, so it's a huge amount. I know there are people that even record more, but still, you need a very big platform to actually handle this. So we need a physically located servers inside each of the countries, or at least near each of those 17 countries that we serve, and mainly for low latency purposes. Of course, GDPR compliance, you are collecting data inside Europe, so it's something that will help you be more compliant in that sense, and also reducing network egress costs. You also get charged by the network traffic that you use in Google Cloud Platform. So the third one is do all of our tagging implementation, Universal Analytics, GA4, marketing vendors on GTM server in a single container, hence one container to rule them all, and start implementing marketing vendors and tags and all of that server side as much as possible. The last one is a bonus. It's basically try to load as many scripts as possible using GTM server as a proxy instead of loading things directly from the Google server from a URL that might trigger some data protection agency or something saying, oh, you're loading things from Google, you're sending the IP address and stuff like that. So anyway, going into all of those points. For the infrastructure, we started with App Engine initially. Basically, it was easy to configure, it was auto-scalable, it was relatively cheap, about $40 per month per instance, and we had running about 100 App Engine instances all the time. That was our baseline, actually. And we had set up the auto-scaling to get up to 4 times that amount whenever there were peaks. We had alerts telling us if that auto-scaling was actually about to reach its limits, so we could actually increase that if needed. So what we did is actually we migrated that infrastructure to Cloud Run about 14 months after. But why exactly? Well, we were limited on one of the things that we needed, on one app engine configuration per GCP project. So this is a limitation that you have. You can only have one app engine configuration, and that means we actually had to have 30 plus different projects handling the exact same thing, and it wasn't a perfect solution. Why? Mostly because you only have, whenever you do a configuration, you can only set one location for that server, so we needed different servers everywhere. So we did this, and App Engine wasn't allowing that. Also, App Engine is not available in all GCP regions, so we were limited in geographies that where we could deploy the servers. Then each instance, the instance creation times actually were a bit high for our tastes, especially for peaks of traffic. We have some peaks of traffic, especially if you have TV campaigns and stuff like that coming in, then traffic comes right away and you need to respond quickly to those measurement requests. So if you have sudden peaks of traffic, this is App Engine in theory is not a really good solution unless you have a huge baseline of servers already in place. But yeah, so that was another reason. Then also App Engines in some regions actually can run into exhaustion of resources, and even the minimum amount of servers that you have set up cannot be met, especially I would say in the US East regions actually were the more affected ones. But yeah, this can happen also. And last but not least, there is no easy way. There is a way, but there is no easy way to load balance the traffic between those geo zones. So the aftermath, after we migrated to Cloud Run, pretty much we have a single GCP project now where we share resources, policies, service accounts, and all. Then we have 17 regions instead of the 8 that we had before. So that's allows us to be closer to the user and have less latency, be more compliant GDPR-wise, and instances that take less than a second sometimes to even load or be up. So if you have a sudden peak of traffic, pretty much it responds pretty quickly to what's going on. And then no frequent resources issues. There are still issues sometimes, especially again, depending on how much the demand in that region is, of course. Not all regions are affected by this. But yeah, it's much less frequent than it was before. And it's less impactful because, again, it takes just less time to actually get up an instance running. And then, of course, improve network latency times, about 150 milliseconds compared to 250 that we had before on appending, mostly because, of course, that region limitation that we had. And pretty much what we do now is that we load balance all the regions. So all the regions are actually serving the same exact GTM container, GTM server container in this case. And the load balancer takes care of giving the user the closest region to, or the closest server to their device, basically. So yeah, that's how Cloud Run can actually help you in that sense. Downside, yes, there are costs. Cloud Run, not just Cloud Run itself, but the whole infrastructure that you have to put in front of it, the load balancer and all, it increased the costs for us for about 15%, but that's our case because we don't have any downtimes on our activity. If your platform can handle to scale down to 0 at some point because you don't have constant activity, then actually the cost can actually reduce in that sense. So it's compared to App Engine, because App Engine you actually pay for the instance even if it doesn't have any activity. So second thing, and about the location of these resources. So again, each GCP project combination of each side pretty much had a GCP project on App Engine. This was our previous implementation. And again, not all GCP regions have App Engine available. So we were using 8 GCP regions and 32 projects, so we had to accommodate them. After migrating to Cloud Run, then pretty much this is how our map looked like. Even within US or within even one same country, you have multiple places where your measurement is being deployed. So this is how it looks like after that. Then, which brings me to the next point, the one container. The one container rule that we have is pretty much we build our own data templates in GTM client side. So what we do is actually send a measurement protocol, initially a measurement protocol v1 request to the server that we build ourselves, and then with GA4 and all, we migrated that to measurement protocol v2. And then in GTM server, we get those standard requests with custom built clients, and then trigger those tags for GA, marketing vendors, GA4, and so on and so forth. Of course, taking into account that you have to take into account the consent of the user. This is something that we respect. We don't even send the hit to the server in that case if the user didn't consent to be tracked in this case. It's not just about cookies. Always remember that. And this is how it looks like, actually. Whenever something happens, an action from the user happens, a single HTTP request with that event goes to GTM server, and then from there we actually split it to different places, to our marketing vendors, we transform that to universal analytics format so we can still have parallel tagging until our license next year expires, and then also to GA4, of course, because the data is already in that format. So you might be asking, if you are familiar with this topic, why didn't you use the built-in measurement protocol client in GTM server? Why did you went all the way to actually build one yourself? I always joke about that because Simo Hava said so. No, but actually it's because pretty much what happens is the built-in client from measurement protocol doesn't set up cookies on the browser once it responds back. It's designed to be a server-to-server connection. It's not designed to actually communicate with a browser in this case. So we built this basically to get back cookies set on a first-party basis back to the browser. So that's the first thing. And then pretty much the second question is, why didn't we use the transport URL on our GTM client tags? Like we have a GA4 tag, we have a universal analytics tag that is native to that. Why didn't you just use that? Well, first, it was fun to do so. We wanted the challenge, but again, we didn't want to load any Google Analytics scripts in the browser, so we were actually doing stuff ourselves, so to avoid different issues with privacy, different issues that we might have in Europe. So we actually capture all the event data and build a measurement protocol hit to the server instead of using just the transport URL to send data to GTM server in this case. So again, what we do is we have the same configuration ID whenever we set up the server. This way, there is a single container everywhere, and all countries have actually the exact same setup. So there are no surprises. You can compare apples to apples whenever you need to. And you have the same Facebook conversions API template, and you have the same TikTok conversions API template, or the same GA4 setup and all of that. So this is typically what we do. And also, whenever we need to test something, we just change the URL of the container, and that's it. We just test in different places. So about the marketing tagging, actually, we built our own server tags in this case, except for Google Ads for different reasons, mainly because it also, for retargeting purposes, it sets a callback to the browser to set up a third-party cookie, but again, it's a different situation in that case. Each of those templates actually, again, they piggyback on whatever requests come from the browser, and we have a specific focus on protecting also personal identifiable information. We redact IP addresses, we redact email addresses in case it's needed, or even hash them if we are going to pass them. So yeah, we have logic behind those variables set up in those containers. So, and things like in this single container philosophy allow us to have also lookup tables, using the magic of lookup tables. So whatever we have a country-dependent variable, such as the Facebook ID or the currency or the API ID that you are using for that specific vendor, then pretty much everything is set up in a lookup table for each one of those domains that we have. So this reduces implementation time a lot. So basically, whenever we have a new vendor in a new country, it's just setting up the ID and the access token, and that's it. It takes 5 minutes tops. So this is at least the way that we found that it's really nice to do. So, and the last part is about GTM and loading different scripts actually from GTM server. I don't personally recommend this to do in a huge volume. Like, don't do this for every single script. GTM server is not really designed to be a proxy. Especially things like headers to set up headers that you want to respond for cache reasons and all of that. So, but again, we do this more and more than ever because even loading Google fonts can trigger some sort of data agency in Europe. So what we are trying to do is everything, at least that it's Google or that it's frowned upon in Europe to be loaded, we try to load it through Tag Manager in a custom URL. In this case, what it does is basically serves as a bridge between the browser, GTM server, and then basically we take the script directly from the provider. So, and the good thing is that this allows us to have custom URLs actually, and we just need to tell the IT guys, hey, please, or the front-end people, hey, just put this URL. We don't need to actually provide them with the ID of the GTM container to be loaded. So it's something that can help you do this kind of cool stuff. Some numbers about all of this stuff. From 18 GTM containers that we had before to just 2, one on the client, one on the browser, one on the client, one on the server. And pretty much we went from 140 plus tags that we had across all of our geographies to just 9 of them, because we have 9 events that typically we measure across all geographies. So it's typically much easier to administer all of this. Again, same for TikTok, same for many others. We removed more than 600 tags when we started doing this. We started doing this a couple of years ago, but still, this is how far we have been now. And again, there are cons, there are pros of this approach. The plus things, I would say, improvements, again, to loading times, drastic reduction, of course, in implementation, and noticeable improvement on the number of conversions and activity that we were tracking. We actually measured, depending on what we were measuring, like from 20+% to actually conversions that we had, like, were improving by 6% compared to the browser implementation. And then, of course, GDPR compliance, because it's more under your control now. I mean, it depends on how, let's call it, good person you are, and basically try to abide to those rules. Then downsides, of course, costs of the cloud infrastructure. Now that's on you. Before it was just, let's call it, free, but it was on Google's, basically. So at about $10 per each million of events, this can scale up pretty quickly. Just multiply, basically. But yeah, we spend a lot of money on this setup. It really depends on the volume that you have on your side, of course. Added maintenance to the template tags whenever an API changes, added monitoring time to the server resources. Now it depends on you if those are up or down. And of course, there's a single point of failure in our particular setup. If we mess up one template, then that vendor basically stops receiving data anymore. So yeah, that's how it goes. And hopefully this was useful for you.
Thanks a lot.
Anytime.
I think everyone can agree that it was probably a lot of work to migrate everything from multiple containers to just 2.
Yeah.
So, congrats. So, I'm pretty sure there will be questions from the audience. So, please, yeah, over there.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for presentation. I would like to know what exactly on your client side left. Do you have GTM on client side?
Yes.
Custom tag? Okay.
So what we have on the clients, we still have a GTM client side because we depend on that, on the custom template on the client side to send data to. So it's more than server side tagging. It's a client to server setup. But yeah, we still have a client GTM container. In that container, we still have some client tags, depending on the vendor especially. But if you have things like, I don't know, Hotjar that actually requires to be in that container, then you need to still load them in there. Or things that modify actually the things on the interface. Like we have some survey provider that actually pulls up a poll in the browser. So if you have things that need to modify content on the browser or read things like Hotjar on the browser, then yeah, you still need that kind of technology. It's not that this is over and that's done with. You still need client-side tagging, but much less than before, basically.
Sorry. For server side, you don't need client anymore. For server side,
if you do pure server side,
like
you can in theory because you can tell your front end to send.
Do you have something on client to send data to server?
Yes, that's what we do, basically. The custom
and it's
template.
Not a GA tag. It's
not a GA tag. It's basically what we have is something that builds the measurement protocol V2HIT, and then sends that to the server, and then on the server we read.
Custom tag.
It's custom tag. It's not the GA4 tag, mainly for the reasons that I explained there.
Over there, I think.
and mainly because we like the pain of building the whole thing. But you can do well if you just do the GA4 tag by itself. Yeah.
I think we can continue with our question over there.
Yeah.
Where are you? I don't.
I'm here. Alejandro. Sorry. Thanks for the great presentation. Cool insights. When you talk about we accepted the challenge and we want this instead, could you talk about the staff, maybe the colleagues, how many people work with you in your team globally, and maybe what kind of agency model you have?
So I believe in the small but efficient team setup. We are actually 5 actually right now, handling all of this globally. So it's it's a process. Of course, we don't create events ourselves. We have a team of analysts for that works not under myself in this case. But yeah, pretty much it's just a team of really well-versed people that actually handles all of this. We handle all the new requests to actually receive marketing managers that want to implement a new channel or a new vendor and stuff like that. But yeah, that's how it works, basically. We get the requests to implement a new API or a new vendor, and one of the 5 of us will actually take that request.
And that's focusing on tracking engineering only?
Sorry, again?
It's focusing 5 people on tracking engineering only?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot.
So I think we got time for another question. So last question over there.
Hi, sorry. No, follow up to that question that has just been raised. How has TRKKN been supporting you? So how are you working with partners on this one? I understand 5 people is a small but efficient team, but you're probably working with partners as well to actually make it work.
So TRKKN actually, what they provide us is mainly the support for GA4 itself, not really the cloud-related stuff. They provide us the license in this case for GA360. And support whenever there is something wrong in GA4 itself. But yeah, this setup, the collection itself it's us. It's all, the 5 of us, pretty much.